We don't have $200 million that we can get together and put together. But you know what we do have? We have more than 150 million women in the United States, the best people who can get a ton of things done all at the same time in order to change the system.
Women are 51% of the population. We carry the majority of healthcare burdens, caregiving roles, and untold invisible labor. And yet the system was just not built with us in mind.
The system is not functioning well. Women weren't required to be in clinical trials until 1993. If everything is evidence-based and we don't have the evidence that we need, then we don't have the protocol and the care that we need in order to deliver to women to change the system.
You're listening to Redefine Her, where we uncover the untold stories, bold ideas, and structural shifts that are reimagining women's health. And today's guest, Jodi Neuhauser, is literally building the infrastructure behind better education and access in women's health. Let's jump in. Today's guest is one of the sharpest builders in women's health, someone who's not just launching products, but rewriting the infrastructure behind the system. Jodi Neuhauser is a four-time founder, healthcare executive, and the mind behind In Women's Health, the Women's Health Pack, and now a stealth initiative designed to generate a $900 million annual economic engine for women's health. We're going to be digging into why the system wasn't built with women in mind, how tech and policy can work together to change that, and what it really takes to build, fund, and scale companies in this space. And she's just getting started. I'm so glad to have you on our show today. Thank you for being here, Jodi.
Brenda, so excited to be here. I'm such a big fan of you and the podcast and the work that you're doing to tell some amazing stories in our space and beyond. So thank you so much for having me.
Most definitely. It's been a pleasure to get to work alongside you this last year and to see the traction you are having and the impact you're making. It's just been a joy. So I'm glad that you are here joining me. Let's just start really at the top. Women's health isn't just underfunded, it's structurally underbuilt. And you've said before that the system wasn't built with women in mind. How does that show up most clearly in your work?
When we talk about the women's health care system, I don't want this to sound like it's women's health versus men's health. That's part of the problem that we have in our ecosystem right now is that people think, well, if we're talking and focusing on women's health, then that means we're not talking and focusing on men's health. There's a lot that needs to happen in the men's health space and just health space overall. But I think if we focus in particular on how the system has made it challenging for women to deliver care, there's so many parts of how the system is not functioning well. And I can give you just a couple of them. If we think about the fact that we live in the United States and work within an evidence-based medical system here in the US, and all of our teaching and training and protocols are all evidence-based, the problem with that is that women weren't required to be in clinical trials until 1993. So if everything is evidence-based and we don't have the evidence that we need, then we don't have the protocols and care that we need in order to deliver that to women. So what does that look like? That means that when medical school education curriculum is based on the evidence that's out there, as it should be, very much as it should be, there's a hole there because we don't have 20 or 30 or 50 or 60 or 80 years of research to go back to build the curriculum off of. It's literally like there's a foundational block that's missing in that perspective. And so you look at a number of these systemic challenges across the board. And research is a great example. And we talk a lot about how we need more funding for research. We need more funding for women's health, which we absolutely do for sure. But I think what we don't talk enough about are the downstream effects of not having that research. So yes, the research doesn't get done and the innovation might not get developed or discovered, but what does it mean for not having that research when it comes to training our physicians, training our clinicians, training our practitioners who are providing the care? What does that mean for funding? Investors are looking for ways to mitigate risk. That's their job. And one of the ways they mitigate risk is in looking for an abundance of research to justify the innovation that's being brought to market. And I think it's really hard to do that when we have a very limited bucket of research because of this, again, fundamental challenge in the system going back to 1993. We as a system and as an ecosystem, as women, need to start digging into not only just what is the top coat problem, but what's that iceberg underneath and those downstream effects.
Man, and that iceberg is ginormous.
Absolutely.
let's roll this back a little bit because you have done a ton in women's health and you have a new initiative as well. Give me your history in both of your programs, the 10-Step Mastermind program, as well as in women's health. Tell us about you and how you have come to where you are today.
I'm a daughter of a farmer and a teacher. I'm born in Virginia. I've always been an athlete and always been competitive. My mom was a 3-sport athlete. My sister is a professional golfer and I was a collegiate rower. And so I've always been competitive in the space. I've always been an insatiable learner. Learning and educating others is core to my essence and who I am, to the point where when I was little, I played school and I built worksheets for my sister who's 5 years younger than I am. And I also used my uncle's truck as a chalkboard, writing Carp Angel across it when I was 5 years old with a rock, which he then drove around for 20 years, the same pickup truck. So it's always been really important to me to educate others. I think where you see this now is in the mini MBA that we teach for women's health, in educating others how the system works and what are the disparities in the system. That's actually core to who I am as a leader. So coming out of UVA, I went to London. I worked in PR for a little while. I coached swimming and rowing at a boarding school. And then from there, went into the sports world. I worked at Condé Nast and Golf Digest in ad sales. And I think one of the key things about being a founder and being an entrepreneur is you have to be able to sell. You have to be able to tell a compelling story, to find a need, and to then demonstrate how your product or service meets that need. So that was the key skill I learned early on in my career. Then I went from there to the buy side of the advertising industry. I worked at WPP and at Omnicom and had an opportunity to work with brands like Apple and Estee Lauder and Pepsi and Visa and these, major global brands that really, showed us how to find consumers, how to engage with consumers, and how to, bring them in, bring them into a brand. That's where I had the opportunity to manage, the OMD brand across 99 markets. And so really understanding that global perspective. And then from there, I took a turn in my career, and actually I was recruited by my CMO of one of the organizations I was working with at Omnicom to go jump into a private equity based deal team. And we saw a data asset in the luxury hospitality space. And there was an opportunity for us to go in and purchase this data asset with equity capital and then bring an additional chunk of growth capital on top of it to really modernize that business and bring it to market. So had a great experience building both the brand and the technology and the product for the luxury hotel and hospitality space. But the whole time I was also training for an Ironman, half Ironmans, triathlons. I've always been active, as I said, as an athlete. And, I was starting to think about freezing my eggs. I had a number of women in my life who were working at the time at Google and Facebook and Twitter, and they were all getting their eggs covered as a benefit. And so I started thinking, well, how am I going to do this? I was seeing a functional medicine doctor. I had my coach. I had my nutritionist for my training programs. And then I had my doctor, and now then working with a doctor to potentially freeze my eggs. I was like, how does all this data go together? There wasn't a place for all of that data to come together. And so this is probably 2014. I started having some of these conversations with investors around what would a platform like that look like and how does that start to come together. And at the same time, I decided to go to South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa, to freeze my eggs because it's a third of the cost. I was not in a position where I worked for a company where it was covered by insurance. And ironically, on that trip, I actually ended up meeting my husband, who we now is happily married and have 2 kids, and they're beautiful. And we joke that our story, which started over egg freezing in Cape Town, South Africa, is definitely going to be a rom-com movie one day on Lifetime or Netflix. But that's sort of how we got to where we are and how I made that transition. I started talking to these investors, found an opportunity to jump into an organization, and I found my previous co-founder. And we started Overdue, and we essentially brought and commercialized a portfolio of IP in the fertility space. And that was really the first place that I jumped into women's health.
Amazing. Then you started in women's health, and now you have a new initiative, which you're launching at Health, which is coming up just after this episode airs. So give us a little bit more about this new transition and the trajectory. In addition to that, the pack that you have made some huge investments in and rallied a ton of people behind for actual policy change. Tell me about this journey.
With Overdue, we took Overdue through an M&A process, and that didn't go all the way to exit. But then at that point, I decided to step away from Overdue and really was supposed to be taking some time off and resting and relaxing. And I just had my son, and a friend of mine called and said, hey, can you help me with a super PAC. And I was like, what is a super PAC? So I learned that really quickly and helped her stand up a super PAC for a political candidate and really started to get involved in what does politics look like. And so I looked around and I said, hey, at the end of the day, there must be one of these for women's health. Perhaps this is how influence is delivered, right, on the Hill. And this is what gets you in the door. This is actually how things, move the needle and how power is brokered in Washington. Of course, there was not one. So I got together with two co-founders, Candace McDonald and Liz Powell, and we decided to start the first ever bipartisan women's health PAC. And for us last summer, right before the 2024 election, and lots of energy obviously going on in a presidential race. And we really were able to catalyze and capitalize on just the number of women who have had an experience with a healthcare system that is so poor and basically have a story to tell about the healthcare system. So we had people calling us from Des Moines, Iowa and Pierce, South Dakota saying, can I start a chapter here? And we're like, well, that's not really how PACs work, but hang tight. And in the meantime, we had a number of our founder friends and corporate partners who were saying to us, what are you going to do to fix women's health reimbursement? And we really need some policy change from a reimbursement perspective. And so we started learning all of this last summer. We ended up having 8 events across the country, raising more than $250,000 and then supporting 16 candidates in the federal election cycle. Of those 16, 12 of them are now serving in office that's bipartisan. So we supported about 60 to 65% Democrats and 40% Republicans in that cycle. So that's how I went from Ovatera to the Women's Health PAC. We can throw the Women's Health journey in there slightly. Essentially, a bunch of friends started reaching out to me and said, hey, I need to hire an engineer. I need to hire a chief of staff. I need to hire this person, everyone in the industry. Who's your recommendation? I was at a conference and I just went back to my hotel room like any good entrepreneur does, put it all in a Substack of everyone who'd asked me that day for recommendations, sent it to the people who'd DM'd me on LinkedIn about getting a job in women's health for the last 30 days. Because as founders, we get absolutely inundated with those types of requests on LinkedIn. And I didn't have anywhere to send those people. So they just basically sat in my inbox, sadly. So I sent it to them and then I put it up on LinkedIn. I woke up in the morning and there were 600 people who'd subscribed to the Substack. So I was like, wow, there's something here. And now that's really evolved into the only career acceleration platform in the ecosystem where we do community, we help people find jobs. And then we also do a lot of education just on how the system works, the economics and women's health work and things like that.
Yes, I think it's quite incredible what you have done. And in terms of all of these different entities, but really they're rolled up under a bigger vision. And your vision for all of that is impacting so many people. I had the privilege of being part of the 10-step mastermind and TAing that with so many women who are absolutely brilliant and are in their search for their next career and making an impact in women's health as well. CH2 Solutions believes technology should do more than just keep up. It should move business forward. Through nearshore solutions, CH2 delivers the technology and talent that simplify complexity, fuel growth, and unlock new opportunities. CH2 Solutions is proud to sponsor Redefine Her, a community built on bold ideas and fearless leadership. CH2 Solutions doesn't just deliver technology. CH2 delivers possibilities, redefining the future together. Let's talk a little bit more about the PAC because I think, the vision behind that, it really is fundamental to making change because that's really where tech dies if we are looking at that. Innovation dies if we don't have the policy behind it. Not because tech doesn't work, but because the system isn't built to support it. So how is the PAC and your idea behind this going to help propel policy change?
We learned a couple of things with the PAC. We learned again that people wanted to do something. They wanted to be involved. We were just telling women, just make sure you go vote. And that was all we were offering to women for a number of years. And frankly, that wasn't enough. I look at the anger scale of women in the United States on both sides. And when the anger scale was here, go vote was okay. But then when the anger scale got up here, just telling someone to go vote just doesn't work. And so what we ended up learning, yes, there were a lot of people who wanted to do something. There were a lot of people who wanted us to fix some real key systemic policy changes. And then ultimately, there are just a ton of gaps to be filled in women's health. And the reality is as an ecosystem, we are not coming to the table certainly in Washington and in government with a big enough check. And that's really hard for some people to hear. But when you read articles in the New York Times or other publications about how crypto industry, they all, together put in $200 million. They created 2 packs. They created a list of regulations that they wanted passed or frankly not passed. And then they went to work and they put that $200 million to work. And, we just had crypto week in April where they had a bunch of regulations that were passed and they got what they wanted. The AI crew or team or ecosystem is using exactly the same playbook, literally down to the same amount of money. There have been articles out over the course of the last couple of weeks saying that the AI industry is coming together. They're using $200 million. They've created 2 packs, and then each pack is dividing and conquering on certain things. And then they have this list of regulations that they either want passed or don't want passed. And that's how true policy change is actually happening. And again, it's hard for people to hear that sometimes, that's how our government and our influence actually works. Not saying that letter writing and advocacy and sharing your story doesn't work. That does absolutely work. It just needs to be augmented by and complementary to also coming to the table in this way. And the reality is we are such a young industry. We don't have $200 million that we can get together and put together. But what we do have? We have more than 150 million women in the United States. And we know that women are some of the best organizers, some of the best advocates, some of the best people who can get a ton of things done all at the same time while also being moms and wives and girlfriends and friends and family. And so the idea really was, how do you look at an opportunity for us to create a recurring revenue stream, to create literally a pool of money every single year? So we're not going out and begging for money from philanthropy every single year, to get what we need and fill the gaps that we need in order to change the system. So that's really what this new organization will do that we're launching just in a couple of days here at Health, and really excited to bring that into the market. And it's designed to look at the common ground. Look at the common ground between us as women. Yes, there's going to be issues that divide us. Let's call a spade a spade. Some people are pro-choice and some people are pro-life. And as women, that is an issue that divides us. Every single woman is going to go through menopause. A lot of women are going to go through pregnancy. A lot of women are going to have an autoimmune disease or Alzheimer's or cardiovascular disease. And so we have these shared experiences as women that we're really going to try to tap into to help people have these conversations around that in order to move change forward.
You've called this an economic engine, not just a company. Tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Essentially, think about Patagonia or an REI or maybe even an AARP or frankly, even an NRA, how those organizations work. So what they have done is they have taken the broader consumer and unified the broader consumer around a shared set of values or shared experiences, and then created a system where the consumer puts in capital. So in this case, the consumer or women will put in $100 a year, and then that capital gets pooled going back into the ecosystem. But it's not just women giving a donation of $100 a year. It's women actually putting $100 in and getting more than $500 of value back out of the benefit. That's just the tangible value that we see. That doesn't include the sense of belonging, the sense of not feeling alone, the sense of being able to tell your story, the sense of this sort of, again, shared community experience. Think about this as Costco/REI/Patagonia meets these packs of the AI and the crypto industry with a layer of a Nike or a Peloton or a SoulCycle, that belonging, that sense of belonging that you belong to something much bigger. That's what we'll be launching here in a couple of days. And I'm really excited to tell everybody about it. And then the way that it works from an ecosystem perspective, how the engine gets created is essentially the dollars get pooled into a shared organization and then together with the ecosystem. So it's not just 1 or 2 or 3 people making a decision on where those dollars go. It's a whole host of leaders across the ecosystem and stakeholders across the ecosystem, from our medical advisory board to our advisory board to our actual board of directors. And those people will then say, okay, out of this, let's just say $100 million that we're able to pull together, as women. That's 1 million women. So we get 1 million women together. That's $100 million that we're bringing to the table. And we can turn around and then say, okay, of that 100 million, this amount of money is going to go towards the PAC and supporting candidates that are aligned with women's health. This amount of money is going to go towards the infrastructure that we need to be built in women's health. So maybe it's data sets. There's so many things that people have come to us and said, hey, we really need to rebuild the PRAMS data, for example, that's now been cut out of the CDC. So these infrastructure projects, the research, right, that's not getting funded. And we're not going to do the research, but we're going to fund organizations that are doing the research. So the Women's Health Foundation, the Society for Women's Health Research, and then also cultural experiences. So how do we fund documentaries? How do we fund all kinds of media that then helps us break those taboos, have those conversations, raise the profile of women's health? So we got it all research, companies, innovation, infrastructure, current women's health organizations. So there's so many women's health organizations out there that are doing fantastic, fantastic work. And their expertise is in advocacy or in, this particular thing. Their expertise is not in fundraising or building a consumer brand or customer acquisition. Let us handle that. And then we get to turn around and write a big check to those organizations and they can focus on what they're really, really good at. So that's how we create this economic engine, is that we create initially this membership. It provides a lot of value back to you as a member. And then from there, we create a number of other revenue streams that get us to the 900 million. And essentially, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. AARP has done this. The NRA has done this. Patagonia has done this. REI has done this. We're pulling the best of the best from a lot of very proven billion-dollar-plus models that are out there and essentially just bringing that to women's health.
Which is absolutely brilliant because women make up over 51% of our population. And we all experience very similar and different things. But as a woman, we need to work together. We need to straighten each other's crowds. We need to support each other through this because there's so much fundamentally that is broken at this point.
Absolutely.
I love seeing this. Tell me a little bit more about what role technology is playing in this venture. Maybe it is the shiny stuff, but tell me about the infrastructure behind this and where can people go to find more about it and commit their $100 to be a member of this?
Absolutely. So technology is a key part of how we deliver those member benefits. In the first year, since we're just getting started, think of us as an early pre-seed, early stage startup. The benefits are less technology driven because we need to take some time to get that technology developed. So the initial benefits are things like more than $500 in discounts on women's health products and services. We do a weekly newsletter. It's called the 5-in-1, and it breaks down the systemic challenges. Why is your OBGYN visit only 7 minutes? Most women don't know that in our current ecosystem. So you get access to that. Once a month, we do a deep dive into something in particular. This last month was actually on reimbursement. It's free. That newsletter is free for anyone to join, but the deep dives are for members only. We do a bunch of member events, and we have a bunch of great member events coming up, both in person and online, that you'll have access to. And then, of course, we're going to have really good swag. We don't have it yet. It's not launched on the website. It won't be there on day one, but we are designing some great swag. You can't have a great consumer brand and community without great swag. So that's in year one. But in year two, we're really looking at designing tools and technology that put money back in your pocket as a woman. So not just the discounts for the women's health products and services, but technology that actually helps you further understand your insurance plan. Last year, it was December 15th before I realized that I had 10 massage visits as a part of my insurance. I was like, man, I could have been getting a massage every month this year. How come I didn't know that? Just helping people really understand the benefits that they have in their insurance, getting everything they can out of it, but also helping them manage denials, helping them manage claims, helping them manage making sure they're getting all those out-of-network claims filed. And so we're looking at the best type of technology, whether we build or buy or partner. We're having that conversation literally right now on, how we create some digital tools that are steeped in technology to really, again, put money back in your pocket as a woman, but then also looking at how do we use technology to get you the right information that helps you be a stronger member of just the women's health community and ecosystem. And so, for example, if you have endometriosis, how do we make sure that, when the Endo Fund does their annual gala or does their day on the Hill, that you're aware of that? So really becoming this marketplace, curated, centralized, that's going, okay, Brenda, tell us a little bit about you, and we'll make sure that we send you evidence-based content from our partners, whether it's at NYU or the Mayo Clinic or our advocacy partners, making sure that you're getting the content and the services and the events and the opportunities that you're interested in that are related to your health as a woman.
I love this. I just think of the businesses, companies across the board, and then apps. Like everything is so disparate. And when it's all centralized and it's providing access for women, it creates more agency for them, which is huge. And again, back to the fundamental basics, we should have access to the best for our own health decisions and making those decisions and not be clueless. I don't think that's actually the best phrase in this situation, but we don't even know where to look because there's so much information out there and you don't know who is saying true vetted information. I love that you guys are doing this and that you will be providing this as a marketplace for women to be able to go to, and then also for companies to invest in and then create this trickle effect that really helps so many women across our country, probably beyond that as well.
We hope so. We really find that there is a dual flywheel effect here in the sense that our members sit in the middle and our members get the benefit of us having strong partnerships with women's health brands, because not only do they get discounts and early opportunities and events with those brands, but those brands also get access to new consumers. And it's the same thing on the other side. Our nonprofit partners and our advocacy partners that we're working with, same thing. They get access to everything that we have going on, but we can also push not only funding their way, but people that they may not have reached otherwise, because again, their focus is not on customer acquisition necessarily in the same way that direct to consumer brand would focus on it. And that's the best and easiest way to think about what we're building is the first consumer brand for women's health, not the first women's health consumer brand. Obviously we have a lot of those out there, but the first overarching consumer focused brand for the women's health space, and really trying to thread this needle of making it available for everyone, and right side, left side, up, down, very early on, 18 through post-menopause. And it's been really hard. I've built 3 global brands in my career, and this is the hardest one by far, because we are really truly trying to thread that needle to create a brand that resonates with men and women, old women, young women, right side of the aisle, left side of the aisle, that everyone can truly find a sense of belonging in this organization.
Hats off to you because you're doing amazing work. And I know you have a ton of incredible people behind you rallying to make all of this happen. And so I'm super excited to see the full announcement at Health, which is this coming weekend from when this will air. Right now, is this on LinkedIn at Stealth for Women's Health?
Yeah, so people can find us at Stealth for Women's Health on LinkedIn and Instagram. That will switch over to our new brand here in just a couple of days. So you may have already started to see some teasers potentially if you're watching this the weekend before Health. And then you can also find us at changewomenshealth.com. So www.changewomenshealth.com. That will walk you through the high level of what I just gave you, and then provides an opportunity for you to join as a $100 member, but then also to gift memberships. So we've seen a lot of women who are gifting 20 or 30 memberships to others who may not have the financial access or the opportunity right now to jump in. And so it's been really heartwarming to see a number of women step up and provide access to others who may not have access otherwise.
What a really beautiful way to empower others using your own power to help other women gain access to this. That's amazing to hear. So I've recently joined CH2 Solutions, and we work with PE firms, we work with startup, we work with small to medium-sized companies, and so many companies in tech, and that's health tech included. They're really buried in legacy systems, and that might come from either companies doing acquisitions and being rolled up. It might come from extreme growth or really fast-paced growth, and they just can't handle the backlog of their technology, and the technical debt adds up. In your experience, where do companies get stuck tech-wise and talent-wise when trying to scale impact?
There's a couple of answers to this. Where companies get stuck on the startup side is that you have this lack of understanding of the overarching healthcare data system. And so I see deal flow all the time where people are coming in and they're like, oh, I'm building this amazing solution, and then I'm just going to give it to the doctor's office and they're going to pull it up as part of a browser. And I'm like, no, that's never going to work. And so understanding of being able to plug in at the first part to those legacy systems is really, really important. Unfortunately, those legacy systems are what they are, but they have the market position that they have for a reason. And this is one of those cases where in healthcare, you've got to understand, where does it make sense to bang your head against the wall and fight the system and try to change the system versus where does it make sense to just know that the pipes are the pipes and you got to figure out a way to swim in the pipes. And I think technology, I would put it in that later category of you've got to understand how to play with the legacy systems, how to integrate with the legacy systems as a new technology in those, because getting a hospital system to take out Epic is an epic task, for lack of a better word. Understanding how those systems work is really important. Understanding the impact too of technology at an exit is also really important. We've seen a couple of women's health companies, one in particular, who built their brand basically off of bringing new technology to the market and building out their own EMR system and using that as a way to talk about how they're saving costs in the healthcare system. And then you look at that company, now they're in a position where they've had a couple of people looking to acquire them or exit conversations. And it's been a huge sticking point because at the end of the day, now they have a piece of technology that can't be integrated into some of these legacy systems, even though 5 years ago, it was their bread and butter and their selling point because that's what was enabling them to take costs out of the system. So when you think about technology, you've got to think about it from a full scale. Do I understand the beginning part? I'm going to figure out how to integrate into the Epic systems. And then if I am building something on my own, what is my path to exit or to monetization? Because at the end of the day, I need to make sure that we can get the dollars back from the investors or back to the investors that have believed in us.
Absolutely. And that ties into appropriating resources effectively. So using talent in the right positions, right people in the right seats so that people can work on the new innovations, the new product development, the new everything when it comes to technology that is new and innovative, but then having a partner who can do the legacy modernization that you might need so that you don't end up stuck when you come to an exit decision.
Exactly.
Because you have to stay working with those things in parallel. Do you see tension when you're looking at hiring technical and product talent and those individuals specifically in women's health? Do you see a tension between them needing to know the nuances of women's health, or where are you seeing the cross between hiring very talented individuals into the women's health landscape, whatever the company may be?
This is just the crazy macro level trend world that we're in right now with the explosion of every AI tool imaginable to man. So I won't talk about it from a looking back. I think looking forward perspective, the execution has been commoditized. That's absolutely happened. Your ability to write code in a certain language used to be able to set you apart, and now it just frankly doesn't. And at the end of the day, your ability to think creatively about the use of technology solutions is what's going to make you stand apart from a technology standpoint. Is in order to be able to think creatively about that, you do have to have a baseline understanding of not only the user, the person who's using the technology, the end user, but also in healthcare, we have misaligned incentives. Oftentimes, the user is not the buyer of the technology in healthcare. And so the buyer has certain incentives and the user has another set of incentives. Understanding your word tension is appropriate. If you're a technologist in this space, not only do you have to bring the creativity, but you have to be able to sit in that tension of building something that is going to work for the buyer, but is also going to have high utilization scores and metrics for the end user.
Most definitely. And I think there certainly is a lot of tension between all of these pieces that are trying to play together. What advice would you have for other founders who are trying to balance innovation with sustainable systems? Of course, that would be on top of hiring great talent. What other advice would you give them?
In terms of founders, too often founders gets focused on what do I need right now? And we see this in lifestyle businesses too, where people end up designing a business around themselves and they're not thinking about the long-term play. And we're having this conversation right now specifically around technology in our new organization. It is, again, back to that word tension. It's that tension between, yes, we need to be putting technology in place that is going to allow us to scale. But right now we need to actually just probably in some ways put it together in the way that's going to get us to market fastest. The nuance and the art and science in building a company, and this is where we look to outside experts to help us, is where is that nuance, that tipping point to where, all right, I've built an organization, maybe, duct taping some technology together because I just needed to get to a proof of concept, or I just needed to get to a, initial product market fit. At what point do you make that change to those processes that are going to allow you to scale and the systems to allow you to scale? That is where I see some founders miss the mark sometimes. Sometimes people go too late and then they're like, oh, wait a minute. And then sometimes people go too early and they make a huge investment in a technology that actually isn't the right technology for them or for their business based on, how their business changes over time.
Striking that balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard. It's very hard.
Very hard. I think that's why it's really critical to have great partners in your world and great people that you can trust and that you can tap into for their insights and their wisdom and their own life experiences, which, speaking of, in your world, I would say Rachel Braun Cheryl might be one of those individuals.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say has been one of the brightest guiding principles that Rachel has brought to this whole initiative that you are running with right now?
Sometimes founders just need someone to help them feel okay and give them permission to think bigger. One of the first things I was like, oh, well, maybe we can try to get to 1,000 members by this point, or maybe we can try to get to 500 members by this point. What Rachel brings to the table is that confidence based on her significant years of experience in our industry to say, you know what? No, we can get to 10,000 members by the end of the year. We can get to 100,000 members by the end of next year, or we can get to 1 million members by the end of next year. And just having someone push you in that way is really important as a founder, but also has been good balance to me and to my maybe more conservative outlook. And women, we do this as entrepreneurs all the time, where we tend to be more conservative in our projections than men. It's proven in the venture capital world. And so having someone help you to push those projections to be a little bit more forthcoming and outright and confident has been really important. Also, just not feeling alone. We need to just touch on founder mental health. Building a company in this space it's hard. It's hard. It's lonely. I don't think people realize this unless you've done it. I've now done it 4 times. And so there are days where you feel on top of the world and you're like, this is absolutely going to work. And I'm 100% going to build a $1 billion business. And then the days that most people don't see and don't talk about are the days where you're like, there is no way this is going to work. Something major falls apart. Something major that you thought was like ready to go and locked in suddenly isn't. And you're just like, there's no way this thing is ever going to work. And then having a partner like Rachel in particular to pick you up in those moments and be like, no, we got this. Let's keep going. This is going to work. It's not the end of the world, and let's figure out a way around it. So having that emotional partner and cheerleader is also really important too.
Boy, I am a past founder as well. I've had my own company for a couple of years, and the loneliness and the struggle, it is real. It is for real. And everyone pitches this, go be an entrepreneur, do these things. And it's really difficult to do. And you've done it now 4 times. What have you taken away from all of this? In addition, obviously, to having strong partners, what do you do for yourself to make sure that you can sustain this engine that you are running and that you're building and growing and the impact that you're having? How do you take care of yourself?
My husband is probably like, did she pay you to ask that? Because he's always the one that's literally like, make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah, you haven't used those 10 massages, have you?
Nope. And now this year, they're not part of our insurance plan. So, darn it. I know. I've learned as we have gone on, my life has also changed over the last 5 years and a period of time that I've started companies. I have gotten married. I had 2 kids. And so life changes in general too. But I think I've gotten smarter and smarter and smarter about just my own routine. I now really try to go, not always, and certainly not in this period of time where we're getting ready to launch, but normally I try to go to bed 8, 9 o'clock after my kids go to bed. And then I get up at 4, get some work done, get my workout in. I know that if I can feed my own cup and fill my own cup before my family wakes up, my kids wake up, and my phone starts blowing up, then I'm going to have a good day. This morning, I got up, I got my workout in, we're ready to go. That's been part of it. The other part of it has really been this true confidence. And coming from when you start your first company, you don't have that shared experience. I learned so much in Ovatera. I could do a whole podcast on things I wouldn't do again. And so you just get smarter and smarter every company that you do. But now there is truly an element of self-trust for me and resilience in that I know that whatever happens, I will figure it out. I know that I do my best work under pressure. And at the end of the day, put my back up against a wall, and I'm actually going to create something brilliant. So I've had that happen enough now over the course of these companies that I'm going to figure something out.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just around the corner. Health USA is more than an event. It's a movement. As America's premier healthcare innovation event, we're bringing together over 12,000 industry pioneers, disruptors, and decision makers. Here, groundbreaking ideas are born, transformative partnerships are forged, and the future of healthcare is taking shape. So join us to experience unparalleled networking, cutting-edge insights, and the collaborative spirit propelling us toward a healthier tomorrow. So for creators who are listening, take note. What would be one bright idea in women's health that you wish you had time to build?
Oh my gosh. There's some interesting opportunities around ADD and ADHD in women. There are a lot of women who certainly in midlife are getting identified as ADD or ADHD. And, I looked at building a company in this space actually about a year ago, and there's just so much white space here for a really good company to be built in that space and just helping women feel confident and comfortable in either getting that diagnosis or just understanding what's happening to them in their body. And it really, for me, came out of, I thought I had ADD or ADHD to the point where I went and got 5-hour evaluation and test. Turns out I don't. And she literally was just like, you need to sleep more. But it's a really serious issue and challenge for a lot of women, and helping people understand what that is could be really interesting.
And I have to agree with that. On top of that, I would say women's heart health.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man, there's just so much opportunity in women's health. And as you mentioned in the very beginning of our conversation today, it's only recently, very recently, that we've even done any clinical trials with women involved in those. And so there's just a ton of opportunity. And so I'd love to see what you are doing. And I love to see how your current Stealth for Women's Health is going to help change that and help fund some policy change as well with the PAC. I was talking with a girlfriend of mine. She dropped this truth bomb on me, and it hit me really at my core. And she was like, self-care isn't just bubble bath and boundaries. It's refusing to shrink yourself. It's asking, what do I need to thrive? And what will I no longer tolerate? Pretending is normal.
Yeah.
But it really immediately made me think of you, and in the unapologetically way that you're shifting systems in women's health. So I want to pass the mic forward to you. What, if you had one off the top of your head, what is a truth bomb that you hope every single person listening to this episode right now in the most advanced country in the world actually hears and can apply to their daily life?
The fact that you are uniquely you, and you are put on this world to bring something to the table that only you can bring to the table. You matter. I tell my kids literally every single night before I put them to bed, you matter and you're enough. We don't say that to each other enough. We don't believe that about ourselves enough. And it wasn't until I had an executive coach who said to me, Jodi, you are the only one who can do this. And not in a cocky way. It's just that I bring a very unique set of experiences to the table. Brenda, as you do, bring a very unique set of experiences to the table. And those experiences, they've come together in your life for a reason. tapping into that and really understanding that and letting that sink into your core is really important.
I love that. It's just absolute truth. We all are unique and we are here for a reason and a purpose. So don't minimize yourself, ladies. Don't shrink yourself to meet a box that the system has put on us. And Jodi, I really thank you for pulling back the curtain. Your work is showing us that we can't just innovate our way to change. We have to build it structurally with intention. And seeing the women contributing to this has been nothing short of inspirational. And it just goes to show that we really can achieve a lot when we come together and we work together and when we work across the aisle and when we just really practice basic human kindness with each other. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Brenda. Thank you so much for having me, and really excited to see all of you guys out in the women's health ecosystem moving forward. And thanks, Brenda, for providing a platform for us to be able to tell this story.
Thank you. Where can people follow you and support what you are building, Jodi?
Find us on Stealth for Women's Health on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can find me personally on Instagram, Jodi Neuhauser, and same thing on LinkedIn, Jodi Neuhauser. And then if you're interested in jobs in women's health or the women's health space, you can find us on Instagram at In Women's Health, and same on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And I highly recommend the mini MBA program as well as the 10-step mastermind program, which for people who might be transitioning into a new role in women's health or even any new career transition. When is the next mastermind?
So the next mastermind, once you hear this, it actually would have started 10 days ago. It starts in early October. We will do one in mid-January, so stay tuned. We don't have the exact dates there, but you can find the dates on inwomenshealth.com or signing up for our newsletter that way. We are going to do the mini MBA one more time in November, so stay tuned again for that. We can get you the dates. They're also on the website. The mini MBA is really what allows you to dive in and understand the nuances of the women's healthcare industry and the economics of it in our space. So that's coming up in November. And then the mastermind for really anyone, not necessarily people who are looking in women's health, but anyone looking to make a career transition, that starts, like I said, in mid-October and then early mid-January.
Dates to be continued. I will put all of this in the show notes so everyone will have access to it. And again, thank you so much. This was lovely. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Brenda. Super excited to be here. And thank you again for having me.
Most definitely. Jodi Neuhauser isn't just launching companies. She's literally building the infrastructure to change women's health from the ground up. From In Women's Health, the go-to hub for health system education and women navigating job changes, to the first bipartisan women's health PAC impacting policy and healthcare reform, to her latest initiative that's growing like wildflowers, Jodi is designing an economic engine that is returning power, resources, and agency to women. So needed. So if you're building, like Jodi showed us, find partners you trust. And if you're a woman navigating this space, build together. Tap into your girlfriend chat group and share changewomenshealth.com. When we build together, when we grow together, we don't just shine, we shape change, and we build a future that is better for all of us. This is Redefine Her. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Redefine Her, where we explore the bold voices, transformative ideas, and untold stories reshaping the future of women's health, wellness, and the technology that makes it all happen. I'm your host, Brenda Armstrong. Redefine Her is produced by Taryn Long and proudly sponsored by CH2 Solutions, powering innovation with purpose. If today's conversation moved you, challenged you, or sparked a new idea, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep redefining what's possible.